You'll be surprised how loud your life becomes the moment you learn to be still. I know the world tells you to rush, to chase, to prove yourself until you forget what you were even running toward. But here's the truth nobody tells you. Your power doesn't come from the noise you make. It comes from the silence you master, the stillness that steadies you, the quiet where God whispers your direction. Today, I want to share 7 lessons, 7 pieces of truth that have shaped every rise, every fall, and every comeback in my life, and each one begins with stillness. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it is the presence of clarity. And I didn't learn that in a peaceful moment of wisdom. I learned it in a season when everything felt like it was slipping out of my hands. You know those periods of life when you're saying yes to everything because you're terrified of missing that one thing that could change everything. That was me. I was moving fast, doing more, giving more, pleasing more, and somehow feeling less and less connected to who I really was. It's strange how you can be surrounded by noise, applause, opportunity, yet feel like you're drifting away from yourself. I thought movement meant progress. I thought exhaustion meant purpose. I thought saying yes meant strength. I was wrong. There came a moment, small, unplanned, almost embarrassing in its simplicity, when life finally demanded I stop. I remember sitting alone in a tiny room, no lights on, no distractions left to hide behind, no phone buzzing, no deadlines barking, just me, my breath, and a silence I had avoided for too long. At first it felt uncomfortable, like meeting a stranger you're not sure you like. But slowly, that stillness began to peel away every noise I had been carrying. That is when I heard something I hadn't heard in years, my own truth. Not the voice shaped by expectations, not the voice fed by fear, my real voice, the one that had been waiting patiently underneath all the chaos. In that moment I realized something powerful. Clarity doesn't shout, it whispers. And most of us are moving too fast to hear it. We rush because rushing feels productive. We stay busy because quiet feels dangerous. Stillness forces you to face yourself, and sometimes that's scarier than any challenge out in the world. But clarity, the kind that directs your next chapter, the kind that aligns your decisions with your purpose, the kind that removes confusion from your heart, comes only when you slow down long enough to listen. So many of us are living like travelers sprinting through an airport with no idea where the plane is even going. We're running from one expectation to another, one pressure to another, one comparison to another. And in the rush, we forget what matters. We forget what we actually want. We forget why we started running in the first place. Stillness is that moment when you drop the bags, sit on the floor, and finally ask yourself, where am I even trying to go? And suddenly the answer becomes clearer than it ever was in the chaos. Stillness isn't laziness, it isn't weakness, it isn't stepping back from your ambitions. Stillness is strategy, it's alignment, it's choosing direction instead of reacting to distractions. When you allow yourself moments of quiet, even a few minutes a day, you begin to notice things you were blind to before. You see who drains you, you see what excites you, you see the opportunities that are aligned with your purpose, not just your ego. You stop running in circles and start walking towards something that actually matters, and something else happens, your confidence grows. Not the loud kind that needs to be validated by others, but the quiet kind that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. When you're still, you stop taking every opinion personally. You stop letting every setback shake your identity. You stop seeking approval from people who don't understand your journey. Stillness anchors you. It builds a foundation inside you that no storm can take away. You may not realize it now, but the moments you think are empty are actually the moments God is working the hardest. Because stillness creates space. Space for wisdom, space for healing, space for redirection. It's where intuition gets louder and anxiety gets quieter. It's where clarity replaces confusion. It's where the next version of you begins to take shape. So if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel lost, if you feel like you're running but not arriving, give yourself permission to stop. Sit with yourself. Listen to the questions your soul has been trying to ask. You won't find your path in the noise. You'll find it in the quiet courage of stillness. And once you learn to honor that quiet, your entire life will begin to move with intention instead of impulse. Your spirit grows in silence the way seeds grow underground. It's easy to love the moments when life celebrates you, when people applaud, when everything you touch seems to move forward. But the truth is, the most powerful seasons of your life will be the ones no one else can see. The seasons where it feels like nothing is happening. The seasons where you feel hidden. The seasons where you're working, praying, hoping, and it feels like the world is moving without you. We mistake those seasons for failure. But they're not failure. They're formation. Think about a seed. Before anyone sees it rise, before anyone admires it, before it grows strong enough to survive the sun, the wind, the storms, it disappears into darkness. It goes underground. It goes beneath the surface where no one claps, no one praises, no one notices. But that quiet hidden season is the reason it will one day stand tall with unshakable roots. If it tried to rise too soon, it would break. If it tried to bloom before it rooted, it would collapse. The darkness is not punishment. It is preparation. There was a time in my own life when I felt buried. I felt unseen. Everyone around me seemed to be moving ahead faster, shining brighter, achieving more, and I kept asking myself, why am I stuck? Why am I hidden? Why am I not blooming yet? But looking back, that season was sacred. It was the quiet place where I learned resilience, where I learned patience, where I learned who I was without applause. It's where I learned that real strength doesn't come from being seen. It comes from being shaped. Maybe you're in that season right now. Maybe you're showing up every day, giving your best, praying for progress, and wondering why nothing seems to be changing. Maybe you're watching other people rise while you're still underground, trying to make sense of your journey. I want you to hear this. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. The world might not see your effort, but heaven does. Every moment of discipline, every moment of sacrifice, every moment of saying no to what's easy because you're trying to build what's meaningful, none of that is wasted. Just because the world can't see your roots growing doesn't mean they're not growing. In fact, the deeper the roots, the stronger the future. Some of the greatest blessings of your life will come after seasons that felt like silence. Silence teaches you humility, it teaches you patience, it teaches you faith, it teaches you to trust the timing of your own life instead of comparing it to someone else's. It teaches you to rely on something deeper than validation. Your purpose, your calling, your God. And here's the beautiful irony of stillness and silence. The moment you stop fighting the dark seasons, they begin to work for you. Because silence is where you start hearing the truth louder. Silence is where you start healing from the wounds you kept ignoring. Silence is where you start letting go of the people and patterns that were never meant to follow you into your next chapter. Silence is where you start becoming the person your future needs you to be. People may not understand your process. They may not understand why you're quieter these days, more selective, more focused, more protective of your energy. But that's what growth feels like. Growth is not loud. Growth is intentional. Growth is sacred. And growth always begins in silence. One day you will rise. One day the world will see the strength you've been building in private. One day the opportunities that weren't ready for you before will align perfectly with who you've become. And when that day comes, you won't just rise, you'll rise with roots. You'll rise with depth. You'll rise with a strength that no storm can shake. You rise not because you were lucky, but because you were patient, because you honored your hidden season. So if you feel buried right now, remind yourself, you are not buried, you are planted. There is a difference. One ends in darkness. The other begins there. Trust your underground season. Something powerful is growing inside you, even if you can't see it yet. Stillness reveals who is for you and who is not. You learn things about people in your quiet seasons that you could never see when life was loud. When you stop running, stop performing, stop trying to be everything for everyone, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. Some people love the noise you make, the energy, the excitement, the attention you attract. But only a few love the quiet parts of you. the parts that don't entertain them, the parts that rest, the parts that hurt, the parts that need. Stillness is where you see which is which. There was a time when I surrounded myself with people who seemed to adore me, who wanted to be around me, who claimed to support me. But the moment I slowed down, the moment I pulled back to find clarity, the moment I became more selective with my time, the room got empty. And it hurt at first. It felt like loss, like rejection. But later I realized it was a blessing disguised as abandonment. Stillness didn't take people away from me. It revealed the ones who were never really mine to begin with. When you're constantly moving, you don't notice who's keeping up because they care and who's keeping up because they're taking something from you. You don't notice who's drawn to your light and who's feeding off it. But when you sit still, when you no longer offer entertainment, validation, or energy on demand, watch who stays, watch who checks in without needing anything in return, watch who sits with you in the uncomfortable silence instead of disappearing when you're no longer convenient. Stillness is like a spiritual filter. It separates the ones who love your soul from the ones who love your shine. It separates companionship from convenience. It separates loyalty from attachment. And though the truth might sting, it's a necessary sting, because the people who belong in your future cannot be people who are threatened by your growth, your peace, your boundaries, or your silence. There are people who love your potential but not your process. People who love the role you play in their life but not the responsibility of being part of yours. People who love the attention you give them but not the stillness that forces them to reflect on who they are. And stillness will show you each one, not to punish you but to protect you. When you stop moving at the speed others expect, some will try to guilt you. Some will accuse you of changing. Some will pull back their love because it was never love. It was dependency. But don't let that intimidate you. The people who are meant for you will not be threatened by your boundaries. They will not be shaken by your silence. They will not disappear just because you take a moment to breathe. They will understand that your stillness is not rejection. It is renewal. And here's the powerful thing. As you let go of the people who can't handle your quiet, you make space for the ones who honor it. You make room for the kind of relationships that don't demand a version of you that drains your spirit. You create space for friends, partners, mentors, and companions who see you even when you're not shining, who choose you even when you're not performing, who stay even when you're not strong. Stillness shows you the difference between those who clap for the person you pretend to be and those who love the person you actually are. And when you finally recognize that difference, you stop begging for love from places that were never capable of giving it. You stop shrinking to fit relationships that can't hold your full truth. You stop carrying the weight of proving yourself to people who don't even know your heart. You stop fighting to keep seats at tables where respect was never being served. And something beautiful happens. Your circle gets smaller, but it becomes sacred. You start valuing depth over numbers, presence over popularity, loyalty over loudness. You begin to realize that the right people don't add chaos, they add peace. They don't drain your strength, they protect it. They don't demand more from you, they help you grow. So if stillness has been removing people from your life, don't panic, don't chase, don't question your worth. Let it happen. Let the noise fall away. Let the truth rise to the surface. You are not losing people, you are losing illusions. And in their place, you are gaining something far more powerful. Relationships built on honesty, alignment, and real love. Stillness doesn't just reveal who others are, it reveals who you are. And once you see the truth, you will never again accept anything less than what your soul deserves. In quiet moments, discipline is born. Not in the noise, not in the applause, not in the rush of excitement. Discipline doesn't grow in the lightning. It grows in the steady hum of everyday choices. The world glorifies hustle. It celebrates big leaps, big achievements, big milestones. But the truth is, 90% of your strength is built in secret, when nobody is watching, when nobody is clapping, when nobody even knows what you're fighting for. Discipline is what happens in the shadows, long before the spotlight ever touches you. There was a time in my life when I used to wait for motivation. I thought I needed passion to begin. I thought I needed inspiration to act. I kept telling myself, I'll start when I feel ready. But ready never came, because feelings are fragile. They shift with weather, with moods, with fear, with exhaustion. If you rely on motivation, your dreams will starve. If you rely on discipline, they will grow. It took me a long time to understand that discipline is simply the art of choosing what your future deserves over what your present desires. And you learn that art in stillness, because stillness slows your mind enough to recognize the difference between cravings and calling. When life is loud, your impulses scream. When life is quiet, your purpose speaks. Discipline is born the moment you stop reacting and start deciding. The moment you stop moving with the world's pace and start moving with your own intention. It's in the quiet moments, early mornings, late nights, pauses between breaths, when you ask yourself, what kind of life am I building? And the answer shapes your next action. There were days when I didn't want to show up. Days when things felt too heavy. Days when progress felt invisible. Days when excuses felt easier than effort. But discipline taught me something powerful. You don't have to be inspired to be responsible. You don't have to feel strong to take a step. You don't have to feel brave to choose courage. You just have to decide who you are and then live like that decision matters. Discipline is not loud. It's not glamorous. It's not dramatic. It's a quiet promise you make to yourself every single day. I will keep going. I will honor my potential. I will not betray myself for comfort. And the beauty is, once you start honoring that promise, it becomes a habit, a rhythm, a lifestyle. Stillness teaches you to pause, not quit, to breathe, not break, to refocus, not retreat. And that pause is what strengthens your discipline, because you are no longer acting out of panic, you're acting out of purpose. Most people underestimate how powerful small choices are. They think transformation requires huge change. But the truth is, your life is shaped in the moments so ordinary that nobody sees them. The moment you choose water instead of weakness. The moment you choose prayer instead of panic. The moment you choose rest instead of self-sabotage. The moment you choose to return to your goals even after falling short. That is discipline. And here's the part no one tells you. Discipline is an expression of self-respect. You don't keep promises to yourself because life is easy. You keep them because you know you deserve a life you're proud of. You deserve a mind that's clear, a heart that's steady, a spirit that's strong. You deserve the future you imagine. And discipline is how you meet that future. Stillness makes you notice the patterns that keep holding you back, the excuses you repeat, the habits that drain you, the fears that disguise themselves as logic. When you're quiet enough to see them, you become strong enough to change them. You begin to understand that discipline isn't restriction, it's liberation. It frees you from regret. It frees you from chaos. It frees you from cycles that steal your potential. Some of the most powerful people you will ever meet aren't the loudest. They are the ones with quiet discipline, steady, grounded, anchored. They move with intention. They protect their energy. They don't waste time arguing with distractions. They choose their life instead of letting life choose for them. And you can become that person. Not overnight. Not through perfection, but through consistent, quiet choices that build strength from the inside out. So promise yourself this. When the world becomes too loud, return to stillness. When motivation fades, return to your discipline. When fear rises, return to your purpose. And when life tests your commitment, remember, greatness is not found in the noise. Greatness is found in the quiet moments when you choose courage, integrity, and faith over comfort. Discipline is built in silence, and silence, when honored, will turn you into someone unstoppable. Stillness makes you magnetic, not loudness, not perfection, not trying to impress or outshine or prove anything to anyone. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are, deeply, truthfully, unapologetically. People can feel that. They're drawn to it. They trust it. They recognize something steady in you that they're still searching for in themselves. And that kind of presence, that kind of grounded energy, it's irresistible. There was a phase in my life when I thought attraction came from doing more, speaking more, achieving more, showing more, being more. I thought the world needed a bigger version of me, a louder version, a constantly available version. But all that did was exhaust me. You can only juggle so many roles before you start losing the one that matters the most, yourself. And one day, after years of performing strength instead of living it, I slowed down. I didn't even do it intentionally at first. Life slowed me, my spirit slowed me. I reached a moment where the noise just didn't make sense anymore. People's expectations, the pressure to impress, the fear of disappointing. I sat in that quiet, and for the first time in a long time, I felt my own energy instead of the world's demands, and that's when everything changed. Stillness stripped away the need for approval. It stripped away the fear of judgment. It stripped away the imaginary scoreboard I thought I had to win. It reminded me that my value doesn't come from performance, it comes from presence. And the moment I understood that, people responded to me differently. They listened differently. They saw me differently. Not because I changed my personality, but because I changed my energy. When you're grounded, you don't chase validation. You don't rush to fill silence. You don't shrink when someone doubts you or inflate when someone praises you. You simply stand in who you are. And that kind of stillness is magnetic because it's rare. Most people live in reaction, reacting to comments, reacting to emotions, reacting to comparison, reacting to fear. But when you're still, you're not reacting, you're choosing. You're intentional, you're anchored, and people feel safe in the presence of someone who is anchored. Think about the people you admire most, not because of what they've achieved, but because of how they make you feel. Chances are they're calm, they're steady, they speak with certainty, they move with grace. They don't need to announce their worth, they embody it. That is the power of stillness. It doesn't demand attention, it commands it. Stillness makes you magnetic because it aligns you with your truth. When you're aligned, your decisions are clearer, your boundaries are stronger, your spirit is calmer, and suddenly the right people, the right opportunities, the right conversations start flowing toward you without force. You stop chasing what never belonged to you, and you start attracting what was always meant for you. People can sense when someone is desperate. They can sense when someone is insecure. They can sense when someone is overwhelmed, but they can also sense peace. They can sense confidence without arrogance. They can sense a quiet strength that doesn't need defending. That is what makes someone truly irresistible. Not the loudness of their personality, but the groundedness of their spirit. Stillness gives you emotional control. You speak slower, you think deeper, you respond from wisdom, not from wounds. And when you show up this way, calm, collected, rooted, people trust you more. They open up more, they listen more. Because your presence gives them permission to slow down too. Your peace invites their peace. Your groundedness inspires theirs. And let me tell you something beautiful. The moment you stop trying to impress the world becomes impressed. Not with the act you were performing, but with the truth you finally allowed yourself to live. Your authenticity becomes attractive. Your self-respect becomes attractive. Your boundaries become attractive. Your calm becomes attractive. Stillness is not about being quiet on the outside, it's about being quiet on the inside. It's about being so in tune with your purpose, your faith, your identity, that nothing external shakes your center. And when you live from that place, people feel it. They're drawn to the certainty in your eyes, the peace in your tone, the strength in your silence. So if you want to be magnetic, don't try to shine louder. Shine truer. Protect your inner peace. But there comes a point in your journey where chasing becomes begging. And what belongs to you will never require you to beg. Never. There was a time when I believed that if something didn't happen fast, it was because I wasn't trying hard enough. If someone didn't stay it was because I wasn't enough. If a door didn't open, I needed to knock louder. I pushed, I insisted, I forced timelines, forced conversations, forced outcomes. And the harder I pushed, the further everything seemed to run from me. It took years and a lot of heartbreak for me to understand this simple truth: alignment cannot be forced. What is meant for your soul will feel like flow, not friction. What is destined for you will meet you where you are, not demand that you shrink, chase, or exhaust yourself to earn it. What is yours will recognize you even when you are still. Stillness taught me that. When I finally stopped chasing, I started seeing clearly. The friendships I had been clinging to were not nourishing me. The opportunities I kept trying to pull toward me were not meant for the person I was becoming. The relationships I tried so desperately to fix were teaching me not to settle, not to beg, not to twist myself into a shape that would never fit. When I stopped running toward everything I feared losing, the people who truly belonged in my life stayed. The ones who were meant to leave, left. And that wasn't a tragedy, it was a cleansing. Stillness showed me that what walks away is never your loss, it's God's mercy. It's the universe clearing space for something better aligned, better suited, better lasting. Here's the truth. Most people avoid. Chasing is rooted in fear. Fear of missing out, fear of being alone, fear of falling behind, fear of not being chosen. But attraction, true attraction, comes from faith. Faith that what is meant for you cannot be taken. Faith that timing is not your enemy. Faith that your worth does not increase or decrease based on who sees it. Faith that you are already enough, already whole, already valuable without proving anything. Stillness shifts you from fear-based chasing to faith-based receiving. And that shift transforms everything. When you stop chasing people, you start attracting healthier relationships, people who value you. People who show up without needing to be begged. People who meet your energy instead of draining it. People who choose you because they see your heart, not because they need your help, your light, or your presence to feel better about their own lives. When you stop chasing opportunities, you start attracting the ones aligned with your purpose. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. Conversations happen that lead to blessings you couldn't have planned. Your gifts begin to speak for themselves, your consistency begins to pay off, and suddenly the things you once reached for begin reaching for you. When you stop chasing validation, you start attracting respect. You carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You walk into rooms differently. You don't crumble when someone misunderstands you or panics when someone doesn't approve. You become someone others look at and think there is something strong about them. That strength is born in stillness, and here's the most powerful part. What comes to you when you are grounded will stay. Not because you clutched it tight, but because it was aligned with the truth of who you are. What comes in alignment does not require suffering to maintain. It flows, it grows, it fits. So if you are tired of running, stop. If you are exhausted from trying to hold everything together, breathe. If you are afraid that letting go means losing, trust. What is meant for you is not fragile. It will not disappear because you rested. It will not fade because you stopped chasing. It will not crumble because you chose stillness. Stillness is not giving up, it is giving space. Space for God to work. Space for clarity to land. Space for the right things to find you with their full strength instead of their half interest. You do not have to chase what is yours. You only need to be still enough to receive it. Stillness connects you to faith. Not the kind of faith that shakes in the wind or fades when life gets heavy, but the kind of faith that steadies your breath, anchors your decisions, and reminds you that you are being guided even when you cannot see the path. In the quiet, you remember that you are not carrying life alone. You remember that there is a wisdom greater than your fear, a timing wiser than your plans, and a purpose stronger than your doubt. I learned this in one of the darkest seasons of my life, when nothing made sense and everything felt too heavy to hold. I tried to fix things myself. I tried to plan my way out. I tried to pretend I had it all under control. But the more I tried to control, the more life slipped through my fingers. There came a moment when I had no choice but to let go, to sit, to breathe, to be still. And in that stillness, for the first time in a long time, I felt a peace I couldn't explain, a peace that didn't match the circumstances, a peace that felt like someone whispering, "You're not alone, I'm here." That is the power of stillness. It quiets the world so you can hear the whispers of heaven. Faith doesn't always come as clarity. Sometimes it comes as a soft, steady conviction inside you saying, keep going. Sometimes it comes as a reminder that you've survived every moment you once thought would break you. Sometimes it comes through the people placed in your life at the perfect moment. Sometimes it comes as a door closing because the one behind it would have destroyed you. And sometimes faith arrives simply as breath, the proof that you are still here for a reason, but you only notice these things when you slow down enough to see them. When you stop forcing answers and start listening for guidance. When you stop rushing to fix everything and allow yourself to trust that not everything is your job to fix. Stillness is where your heart and heaven meet. In that quiet space, you begin to understand that God is not late. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. Prepared for strength, prepared for clarity, prepared for the next chapter that requires a wiser, calmer, more grounded version of you. Faith grows when you stop trying to rush your own unfolding. When you start believing that the journey has purpose, even when the path feels unclear. When you start trusting that the things falling apart are making room for things that will fit your future, not just your past. When you stop seeing delays as punishments and start seeing them as protection. Stillness teaches you to surrender, not in defeat, but in trust. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is saying, I am doing my part and now I am trusting God to do His. It is stepping out of anxiety and into alignment. It is releasing the illusion of control so you can receive the direction you've been praying for. There is something sacred that happens when you learn to rest in faith. You stop panicking about what hasn't happened yet. You stop fighting battles that are not yours. You stop replaying fears that never come true. And instead you start noticing blessings. You start recognizing signs. You start seeing progress in places you once overlooked. You start hearing your intuition again, the voice inside you that has always known the way. Faith doesn't remove challenges. It strengthens you to face them. It turns mountains into teachers instead of threats. It turns delays into divine timing instead of disappointments. It turns your journey into something sacred instead of something stressful. All of that begins in stillness. Stillness teaches you that the universe is not random. Your story is not accidental. Your life is not without meaning. You are guided. You are held. You are being shaped in ways you will only understand later. And when you truly feel that, when you let that truth settle into your bones, your entire energy changes. You move differently, you speak differently, you fear less, you trust more. You stop begging for signs and start recognizing them. You step into life with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are walking with something greater than yourself. That is the kind of faith that stillness gives you. A faith that does not depend on circumstances, but on connection. A faith that does not disappear in storms, but deepens. A faith that turns your entire life into a conversation between you and the divine. And from that place, you rise. So as you move forward from here, carry this truth with you. You were never meant to live life by force. You were meant to live it by faith. When the world grows loud, return to your stillness. When your path feels uncertain, return to your faith. When fear tries to rush you, remember, God is not in the chaos. He is in the calm. He is in the quiet. He is in the steady steps you take even when you can't see the whole road. And know this, your destiny is not something you have to chase. It's something you grow into. Step by step, choice by choice, moment by sacred moment. So breathe, stand tall, move with intention, and trust that your life is unfolding in perfect, divine timing. Because you don't need permission to rise, you don't need validation to shine, you don't need the world's applause to become who you were created to be. Just stay rooted, stay faithful, stay still long enough to hear the truth inside you. Your next chapter isn't waiting for noise. It's waiting for you to be steady, present, awake, and brave enough to take the first step. Go forward with faith. The world may test you, but your purpose will carry you. And what is meant for you will always, always find you.